So what do we do? How do we fix this? I actually wrote a book with some prescriptions. It's called Rebooting the American Dream. And it's pretty straightforward stuff. Number one, we change our trade policies. I mean, our trade policies started going screwy in the 70s. They went seriously screwy in the 80s and totally nuts in the 90s. And here we are now, the world's largest importer. You know, basically our wealth has been transferred to China. And not just China, but I mean, you know, China and much of the developing world. So let's just reverse those policies. Let's go back to what George Washington put into place at the advice of Alexander Hamilton, and frankly, over the objections of Thomas Jefferson. Let's go back to what George Washington put into place in 1792 and 1793. Hamilton's 11-point plan, a protectionist trade policy that stood until the 1980s. From the 1790s to the 1980s, almost 200 years. It worked. And then it got taken apart. Let's also roll back the Reagan tax cuts. I mean, this is not rocket science. We built the biggest middle class in the history of the world by having a top tax rate on people like the Koch brothers, on millionaires and billionaires, that was 74%. Said, fine, you know, you want to take $1 million, $2 million, $3 million a year in income in today's dollars and pay less than 50% in income taxes? Cool, we can make that happen. But once you get over $3 million a year, it's going to be 74%. So you might want to think about instead paying your employees, putting money back into your company, developing new product lines, growing your business. And this is why from, you know, after the great crash from the 1930s until the 1980s, CEOs made 30 times what their employees make. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but that's a hell of a lot of money itself. I mean, if the average family income in the United States is $40,000, well, actually the average individual income in the United States is $25,000. So what's 30 times that? Well, let's see, that would be 7 million, wouldn't it? If I'm doing my math in my head fast enough. I mean, 3 times 25, you know, 25,000 a year, that's, you know, multiply by 20, it's functionally a quarter, right? So it'd be 1/4 of 30, half of 30 is 15, half of 15 is 7.5. And then you throw some zeros after it, yeah, $7 million a year. So the average CEO is making $7 million. That's, or would it be 700,000? 30 times, okay. 3 times 25,000 is 75,000. Yeah, so it would be $750,000 a year. So the average CEO in the United States, if they were making 30 times what their worker was making, and the average worker was making $25,000, the average CEO would be making $750,000 a year. That's still a hell of a lot of money. I mean, you know, you can live really well on $750,000 a year. But no, now we've got CEOs making 500 times, 1,000 times, 3,000 times what their workers are making. That's crazy. So let's bring back the Reagan tax cuts so that CEOs have, you know, instead of, and not just CEOs. I mean, it's like, you know, over at United Healthcare where Stephen Hemsley has taken over $1 billion in compensation. According to some press reports, there's over 100 executives at that company making over $1 million a year each. Enough already. And that's not, I mean, that's just one of many companies that are all doing the same thing, essentially. Let's break up the big corporate monopolies. Let's go back to enforcing the Sherman Antitrust Act. Walmart is too big. It's not just, you know, ExxonMobil. I want to like sing the praises of inefficiency. Up until a year or two ago, India had a law that said that no company or family or individual could own more than 2 retail outlets. And so you had tens of thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of small retail outlets all over India. It was very inefficient. But what it did is it provided for a retail middle class. You had all these little family-owned businesses, and you had all these little families that actually were making a living. Just like we had here in the United States before Reaganomics. Let's educate all of our people for free. I mean, this is not rocket science. For free. Just say, here, free college education. This is not a new idea, by the way. It was Thomas Jefferson's idea, and Abraham Lincoln actually put it into place with land-grant colleges. And, it stood for half a century. Almost a century. Well, arguably for an entire century. Until Reagan became governor of California, ended it in California, then became president of the United States, and basically ended it nationwide. And now we've gone from, tuition, the part that the student pays, representing about 20% of the cost of college education when Reagan came into office, to now tuition represents 80% of the cost of college education. Because the amount that the state pays and that the colleges pay has gone from 80% down to 20%. I mean, it's just reversed itself. It's crazy. Let's make sure that everybody has health care for free. I mean, in Canada, your total out-of-pocket maximum cost, $150 a month. That's it. There's no co-pays. There's no deductibles. There's no, all this other. This is nonsense, this stuff. I mean, even in Obamacare, it's crazy. Let's clean up Medicare so it's truly a single-payer program where there's only one payer, the government. No co-pays from the citizens or anything else. And then let's make it available to everybody. Bernie Sanders introduced legislation to do this on yesterday, into the United States Senate, by the way. We'll be back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 866-987-THOM.
And then, of course, let's encourage co-ops, and let's pass clear legislation that says corporations are not people.